Welcome, Greek U Nation, to episode number 274 of the Fraternity Foodie Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Ayalon, CEO of Greek University. I'm a speaker and a two-time author. Our second book is called From Letters to Leaders, Redefining New Member Education and Leveraging Belonging to Eliminate Hazing. So go and pick up that book today on Amazon. We call these episodes the Fraternity Foodie Podcast because there is nothing like great food to bring college students together. Fun fact, I just came back from a trip to Philly, Boston, New York City, and Chicago. The food was so good. I ate everything in sight, so I have a million questions about binge eating and all the salt that's in my diet when I'm on the road. So we have the perfect guest today. Everything lines up. I love when everything lines up. Our next guest is Dr. Erica Steele, back for her second time on our show because the first episode just went viral. It went all over the place. Dr. Steele is an extensively educated and trained board-certified naturopathic doctor, doctor of natural medicine, and certified functional medicine practitioner. Dr. Steele specializes in natural health, healing, disease prevention, and total holistic wellness. She is a public health educator with various media outlets in the mediums of print, television, and radio. Since 2001, by applying multifaceted and synergistic approaches to physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual health, Dr. Steele has transformed the lives of countless children, teens, adults, and elderly patients challenged by an array of conditions ranging from digestive and immune-related disorders to neurological, hormonal, and much more. She's seen over 30,000 patients since 2009, and Dr. Steele seeks to educate the world about the benefits as well as the science of natural healthcare. Welcome to the show, Dr. Steele.
Hello, thank you for having me.
What's up? You are like a ray of sunshine. I love having you on the show because you're like the anti-doctor doctor.
I am like so the anti-doctor
doctor. Forget the stethoscope. I'm not going for any of that.
I can't do it. It's funny because most of the time patients come in and they go, I hate doctors, but I like you, but I hate doctors.
Because you're real.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not like in a box. I'm not squared out. I'm not too self-important. You know, I put my pants legs on just like everybody else.
Yeah, me too. I feel the same exact way. So, all right. So let's get down to it because there have been some things since you were last on the show that happened in our country, the beloved United States of America.
Yeah.
And I have to go to a doctor to really understand what's happening here and how we're going to get through it. Because right now, there are so many young people out there that are dealing with this most recent Supreme Court rulings on abortion. It was the law of the land for 50 years. And now it feels like we're going back to the 1950s. According to Pew Research Center, 61% of Americans believe that abortions should be legal in this country. 37% say they should be illegal. So how can we as Americans get through this time when Americans are just feeling so disempowered right now?
Yeah, that's like so loaded, like all of that, right? So we're definitely polarized in thinking. But what I have found is there's a lot of misinformation out, right? There's a lot of lack of education. So I think the first thing to really be empowered is to educate yourself, right? Educate yourself on, even if you're not necessarily in agreement with abortion, educating yourself as to why people get abortions, because there's this old fallacy that exists. I think this country has so much deep-seated shame, especially around like sex and things like that. So it's like this assumption that it's just this reckless person who goes out and gets drunk and uses, you know, abortion as a form of birth control. And, you know, I'm sure that there is a small percentage of people that do that, but there's also a larger percentage of people that they actually use this treatment for different medical situations like miscarriages or, you know, opting, you know, instead of that doing, you know, for stillbirth or ectopic pregnancies, which of course people are aware of. And so understanding why people get abortions, I think is really important, even if you're not necessarily of that mindset that you would want one.
I like that a lot, just to get educated, no matter which side of the issue you're on. I think there's a lot of reasons why a woman might get an abortion. And I think we just need to educate ourselves a little bit better to understand it. And I think that kind of leads into the second question. I want to talk, you're obviously a very powerful woman. I mean, you are a force to be reckoned with, which is why I love you so much.
Yes.
So, I mean, what does it mean to you to be a powerful woman?
So I think, and this kind of really goes into this consciousness right now because it's bringing up so much grief for women about being a woman and the patriarchy and having to like work yourself to death. I mean, as a doctor, right? And I speak to my healthcare colleagues as women, right? And then, take into consideration women of color, right? So we have to work so hard, right? The bar is like up here, right? And we're taught from an early age that the bar is up here and you have to meet it just to be able to sit at the table, right? And then when you get at the table, they're going to be watching you. So you better make sure you have your P's and Q's and everything in order, right? And so I'm of this mindset now, right? I don't really care about the table. I don't really want to sit at the table. I don't even like the table. Like, I don't even like the people at the table. And so I feel like if we start to go inward instead of outward, instead of constantly looking for someone to approve of us, but rather beginning to approve of ourselves and accept ourselves and love ourselves and find our tribe, find the people that not necessarily agree with everything you agree with, but are going to be respectful, loving, kind, because especially what we have going on right now, it's literally a polarized view. You've got this kind of old world thinking, right? Like flashback city, like 1940s, 50s, with this new consciousness that's coming in that's like, wait a second, I don't care who you love. I don't care, if you identify as this or that. I don't care what color skin you are. Like, I don't care about any of that kind of stuff. Are you a good person? Like, those are the things that really matter.
I love that. And, in there, you were talking about women loving themselves. How can we build up our own self-esteem if we're struggling right now?
Yeah, so I think it's looking at all the limiting beliefs, number
Mhm.
one. So looking at all the I can'ts, I won'ts, I shouldn'ts, this is going to happen, this is going to happen, all the fears, right? All the you have to get a pen and a piece of paper and you have to write them all down because they're illogical. But if you don't bring that darkness into light, it's going to run the show, right? Carl Jung, if you allow the unconscious to be an unconscious, it's going to drive your life and you're going to call it fate. And so you've got to bring all that darkness into it. Whether it's illogical or not, you get it all out on a piece of paper, you vomit it all out and you look at it and you go, okay, is this ultimately true? Is it ultimately true that I have to bust my tail to get to the seat of the table? No. And then let's say if it's a yes, right? Yes, I have to do this because blah, 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 right? Then I go, do I want this to be true? Right? Yes or no? No, I don't want to have to work like double, triple overtime to prove myself, right? And so if I don't want this to be true, what do I want to be true instead? I want to be true instead that I'm a powerful woman that is highly educated with tons of positive energy and people are just going to absolutely love to be around me and they're going to be attracted to me. So I don't need to work as hard to prove myself when I'm coming from that mindset. So it's about shifting that negative mindset into more of a positive mindset. But then it also leads into, you got to get rid of all the tapes, all the stories of, my dad said this, my mom said this, my grandma said this, my friend said this, the TV told me this, etc.
I love that mindset. I'm going to have to go back and listen to this interview the next time I'm having a difficult time. All right, Dr. Steele told me to get rid of the tapes. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. We've moved on now. We're on like, what is it? I guess it's not even MP3s anymore. It's like figments on our phones. So yeah. I remember.
We don't even have any tapes. What tapes? There's no tapes anymore.
Tape tracks.
I mean, I think we also have to talk about mental health, right? Yeah. I mean, inflation is such a big issue today. Costs for everyday Americans are going up quickly. If we're looking at gas, we're looking at groceries. I mean, are there exercises we can do to maintain our mental health, our sanity, our emotional health when the world feels like it's falling down all around us.
Yeah. Well, and the world is kind of a dumpster fire right now, on all fronts. Like, there's not one area that's like, well, that's doing okay. You know, the environment's doing okay. No, the EPA
No.
stripping regulate. You know, it's like, oh, the economy's doing well. No, public health is doing well. Our physical health, you know, so it leads into this disempowering context, right? But we've got to let go of the victim mindset, right? Remember, each and every one of us individually is creating this reality. So if each and every one of us are continuing to reinforce the drama, the trauma, the this, the that, right? It's going to continue and it's going to proliferate. So what I'm saying is we don't want to ignore what's going on, right? But we also don't want to invest in it so much, right? It's little things, right? Like, I catch myself, like, I'll be at the gas pump, right? And I'm like, oh my gosh, $100 in gas on my little, like, wow, you know, and I go, oh, wait a second, right? I'm not gonna forward that consciousness. I'm not gonna keep telling myself, oh my God, this is so expensive. Oh my gosh, I can't believe this. Oh my gosh, the government. Oh my gosh, the gas price. You know, I'm not gonna keep telling myself that, because that's gonna keep showing up again and again. Instead, I'm gonna be grateful. I'm gonna be like, you know what? I'm so grateful that I have a car. I'm so grateful that I can fill it up, even if I can only get 20 bucks in it, right? I'm so grateful that I'm able to, because I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a serial entrepreneur. So I literally left my house at 16 years old with not even a photo ID. I didn't even go to driving school. Okay. So I remember days where I was like, $5 in the gas tank, and I pray this card is gonna go through, right? I remember days where I had all kinds of different financial woes and stress responses. So I want everybody else to understand, I'm not some high and mighty doctor over here who's like, oh, I'm sitting on my throne telling all the peasants that, you know, it's gonna be okay and just ignore all the craziness. I opened my practice in 2009. Okay. 2009, if we go back, that was the housing crisis. Banks weren't lending anything. Your credit score could have been a 1080 and they wouldn't have even talked to you. You know, and I was able to I bootstrapped a company in a town in Virginia that didn't know anything about natural health doctors. People thought I was a witch. And in fact, some people still call me witch, you know? And so I just hit the pavement and I trusted, I had faith in God. I have a great relationship, and I just put one foot in front of the other. And so if you're going through the fire, you focus on the step you're on, or the next step, not the final step or the last step.
Excellent advice. Very good. Now, you know, one way that I was dealing with all the stress over the last 2 years during the pandemic is just binge eating. And it's funny because my primary care physician, he'd be like, all right, step on the scale for my annual exam. And then you just like call it like COVID pounds. Like, it's just expected that we're all just supposed to gain weight because if we're living in a pandemic, and that's what we do, we eat. So how do we stop this behavior of just binge eating?
So when we want to go eat, we want soothing.
Mhm.
And most of us have not learned how to soothe ourselves. We haven't learned our emotions. So we have our thoughts, then we have our emotions, right? And then we have our actions and our behaviors and our habits and our lifestyle, right? So we've talked about the thoughts, we've talked about the limiting beliefs, we've talked about possibility. Now we've got to talk about your emotions. And so what kind of emotional strategies, coping strategies do you have, right? So if eating is your emotional coping strategy, the action is going to the refrigerator 1,000 times, eating whatever, the habit is continually doing that, eventually you're going to gain weight. That's just the way that it goes, right? But if I go, you know what? I've eaten all my calories for the day. I've eaten my protein, because most people are protein deficient, which is why they crave things. So I've eaten all my protein for the day, but I still want to go eat something. Now I say to myself, what can I do instead? Can I go for a walk? Can I do a meditation? Can I do some yoga? Can I throw on a YouTube? Can I just put on maybe like a stand-up comedy and laugh, right? You know, can I scroll on TikTok for 20 minutes and distract myself? You know, what are the things that I can do that are going to help to uplift me and help me to feel more empowered, rather than me wanting to be disempowered and really self-betray, abuse myself?
Yeah, I appreciate that perspective. I think that's great advice. And related to eating, I travel a lot for work. I'm speaking on college campuses. I live out of my suitcase in hotel rooms all across the country. And it's hard for me because I can't exactly cook a meal in my hotel room. Most of the hotel rooms that I'm staying in anyway, they don't
Right.
have like full kitchens. Okay. It's like a bed, and you're lucky if you get a microwave. You're lucky. So, is eating too much salt, is that really bad for you or no?
Oh my gosh. Well, of course. I mean, yeah, it's like hypertension. It really dehydrates you. That's the issue. So
Mhm,
you're eating all this salt, it dehydrates you. It's going to elevate your blood pressure, and naturally it's going to affect your kidneys, right? And
mhm,
so,
mhm.
yes, definitely eating processed foods, eating chemical laden foods, even the food dyes, additives, colors, all of that stuff is really challenging. So one of the things I encourage people that, often like travel is to look ahead, right? So to plan ahead, right? So look at the hotel you're staying at. Look, okay, what restaurants are nearby? Is there a grocery store nearby? Can I, just grab some quick protein snacks? Can I grab some, fresh, like apples and things like that, fresh produce? That way I can just kind of use that a little cooler, whatever. You can get one of those little disposable coolers. There's a lot of things if you prioritize it, right?
Mhm, mhm.
If you just live at the effect of your life and you're not causing your life, then of course you're going to be stuck staring at the microwave going, what can I put in it, and so, but if you create it and you know what you're going to do ahead of time and you just include it as a part of it, then you'll be good. So also to, when you're flying and stuff, you can take your own food. You can bring your little lunchbox. I do it all the time.
Yeah, I need to be more intentional about that. I mean, I just kind of look around if I'm in the airport or if I'm in the hotel, like what's convenient, but I have to start planning ahead. I have to take the food with me on the plane, and then just hit the grocery store as opposed to the fast food restaurant. And I could probably make this work, but you got to be intentional. I mean, that's the whole key to all of
Yeah,
this.
whoever they are banking on the fact that you don't plan.
I know.
That's why there's a McDonald's on every corner. That's why there's a fast food chain on every corner. That's why every 7-Eleven or whatever convenience store has everything processed, because it's good for shelf life, but not necessarily good for your body.
Yeah, great point. I can't imagine half the things in 7-Eleven. Yeah, it'll last all day long on those little rollers, whatever processed meat is on there.
I
But,
know, exactly. It's
it's
a
been
little
there
bit of a
forever.
science experiment. I know. So it speaks to really our resilience,
Yeah.
honestly. Like the fact that we are able to live on this planet in the state of affairs that it's in is, and then the food supply. I mean, we're literally walking miracles. I don't think we have anything to worry about.
That's a
We'll be
great point.
preserved for a lifetime.
That's a great point. Getting back to the mental health conversation, I mean, during the pandemic, I'm going to be honest with you, I definitely felt lonely at times because I was accustomed to so much travel. Everything was basically shut down. So here I am basically just by myself instead of, thousands and thousands of college students in person. What are the effects of isolation on the brain?
Oh my gosh, yeah. There's so much in terms of the dopamine response, the loss of connection. I mean, even with little babies, right? If babies are not held, in the first little bit of life, they'll actually die. Like that's how much we need connection and we need tribe and we need to be around people. But I do see the pandemic as being a situation where it resets people, because that dopamine response, everybody's like, go, 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 got to get it done. I want to be distracted. I want to be around people because then I don't have to focus on myself. I want to be eating whatever because, then it makes me feel good. And so I really see that. And I've heard people talk about this as well, their doctors, like as the great reset, right? It really stopped everybody in their tracks and took inventory, right? So as you're stopping and you're sitting there, right, and you're taking inventory of yourself, do you like what you see? Right? Do you like what you feel? Do you like what you've created in your life? And if you don't like what you've created in your life, what do you want to do to change it?
Mm,
That feeling of loneliness is self created. We're never really lonely because we're all together, we're all connected, right? But if we're feeling lonely within self, right, we ask ourselves why? Why do we need someone else's validation for us to feel full, right? I have been a single woman for a long time. I'm dating somebody now, but I enjoyed the pandemic mostly because I was able to really be with myself and really, I mean, naturally myself and all my patients treating 100 hours a week, but I enjoy the time that I have behind with myself, because it's so fleeting, because I don't have all the other noise, I don't have all the other energy, I don't have all the other conversations, I don't have to set so many boundaries. I can just be with myself and my little puppy dogs, and I can just build that connection. So it definitely affects the brain, affects serotonin, dopamine, but more importantly, it gets you out of those high and low cycles, and it gets you stable. And when you're stable, that's when all the fears and the unresolved emotional responses come up.
Mm, very nice. Very nice indeed. Okay. So, as a result of the pandemic, I don't have to tell you, many of us have lost loved ones recently. It could be from COVID-19 complications. I'm sure you've seen a lot of patients that have put off coming to the doctor for a long time. They're kind of delaying, taking care of their own health. And so we've lost some people along the way. And so, what is the best way for people to deal with a death in the family?
Yeah. So I think there's kind of twofold, right? There's the shock death, there meaning like the death that just happens out of nowhere, right? And there was not expected, versus the death that like is a gradual progression in like cancer or some sort of chronic disease. So we have to kind of classify them in two different ways, because the mind can understand, right? The gradual decline. It doesn't really understand the shock, right? And so the shock, really, the conscious mind and the subconscious mind have to agree in order for the grieving process to occur. So grieving, as we know, there's 5 6 different aspects of grief. There's the denial, which in shock, that's like instant. It's like, what do you mean? They were here, they weren't here. And a person who's been shocked, they're going to stay in that grief response, that denial part, for a long time. Rather than somebody, it's like, oh, they can get to maybe the anger of it or the depression of it or the bargaining of it a little bit faster. But I think it's important to be intentional again and to recognize, okay, this has happened. I'm grieving. I'm going to be gentle with myself. I'm not going to rush myself through this process. I'm not going to force myself to process this, because there's a lot to unpack with it. Like I lost my former husband, right? And so the whole process of grieving, right, that loss took about 2 years, right? And I mean, when it first happened, even though I knew it was going to happen, he had cancer, right? But I shut that part off myself. The denial was like, nope, we're going to save him. Especially me being a doctor, I'm like,
Oh, yeah.
oh, of course, we're going to just get in there, right? And so when he actually died, I was like, oh my gosh, what happened? And so I kind of took to the bed, kind of depression hit first. And then I said, okay, so I'm going through my brain and I'm going, okay, what do you've got choices here. We always have choices. So am I going to follow him? I'm going to pass over. Am I, why am I here? Right. Okay. I have a daughter. I have her responsibility. I have a practice. I have patients that are responsible. So really the balancing scales was like, okay, I need to stay here. Right. So now that I've decided I'm going to stay here, right, and all these reasons of why I'm staying here, now I've really got to get myself back. So maybe some of your listeners have heard of this, probably not. There was a really funny movie, I think Bill Murray was in it, called What About Bob, right? And he had like a psychiatrist or whatever. And so it was all about baby steps. That's what the psychiatrist taught him about. And so what I did was baby steps. So it was like day one, the first baby step for day one was to get out of the house, right? No shower, no teeth, no nothing, looked a train wreck. I went to a little local health food store or whatever, and I walked around. I got a smoothie. I got the thing, and it was so funny because their like credit card machine was like ancient. So it had an issue with it. Like they had some sort of thing. And I'm like, okay, I'm sitting here. And then I could feel the grief bubbling up. And then all of a sudden I was like Yoko Ono in the middle of this health food store, just screaming and yelling and crying and whatever. And it was, and of course they're like, oh my God, what's going, but it was like, I got my things, I left, signed off the receipt. I'm like a ball of tears, but you know what? Baby step number one, I got out of the house. That was day one. Then I came home, back to bed, right? So day two, it was like, take a shower. Day three, it was, put some different clothes on. Like it was every single day I had to bring myself back to life. And so when you have experience loss, of course, that's a little bit of a dramatic experience, but you get the point. It's like you just set one goal and you put one foot in front of the other. You don't have to know everything all at once. Like I didn't know anything at that time. I just knew I had my daughter, I had my practice, I had patients that depended on me, and that was more important than me following him over to the other side.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for sharing that story. I know that, you went through a tremendous ordeal there, but I think by sharing it, our listeners are saying, you know what, maybe I can do that too. Maybe one step at a time, I can get through this difficult time, because we all go through a difficult time at some point in our lives. It's inevitable. And so it's just a question of when. And I think that's going to help a lot of people who are listening right now. And you know what? I think I'm going to be in Virginia Beach sometime very, very soon. And when I come to Virginia Beach, I want to make sure that you and your significant other are available, so that way we can go to a great restaurant in town in Virginia Beach. So when that happens, not if, but when that happens, where are we going to eat?
Oh my gosh, where are we going to eat? I don't know. There's so many amazing places. There's Becca, there's Pilates, there's Catch 31, there's Waterman's. Oh my God, there's like so many incredible I'm like, yeah, I don't like food at all, so I just love all of the different restaurants, and they all have their own unique. And also too, I tend to go for healthy restaurants, so
Nice.
I got you covered.
I can imagine that that's true, and I appreciate that. My doctor is going to appreciate that, because we got to bring my hypertension down. So all of that is good. And if you have a view of the ocean there in Virginia Beach, you know what? It really doesn't even matter, honestly.
Exactly.
I would be so happy just looking at the ocean, to be quite honest.
Yes, it's beautiful. We've got some great, Catch and Waterman's are great places right on the ocean front. It's just amazing. Even Orion's. Oh my gosh, Orion's is so amazing. It's like on a rooftop, and it's like panoramic glass, so you can see all. I mean, it's like for years, like you just look out, and dolphins and all the things.
See, that's what I need. I mean, living in Nashville is great, but we're landlocked, and it's like, I miss the ocean. I need to be near the beach. Oh my goodness.
I remember when I lived in Atlanta, which I love Atlanta, by the way, but landlocked again, right?
Yeah.
Land culture, right? And my dad, I'm from California, so my dad called me actually for my birthday one year on the beach, and like put the phone out so I could listen to the waves, because I'm such a beach girl. I love the water. It's so healing.
It really is so healing to me too. I think there are certain people that just need to be near the beach, and right now I'm really jonesing to get to the beach again. So hopefully my travels will take me there to Virginia Beach very soon.
There's some great colleges here.
Oh yeah, there's amazing stuff there. So, all right. So if our audience members, if they want to go and read your blog, they want to connect with you, maybe get some advice, where should they go to connect with you?
So I'm on every social you could possibly imagine. My website, holisticfamilypracticeva.com, and then also Dr. Erica Steele. It has all of the interviews I've done. So if you like that format, any of the socials, I'm really easy to find. You just Google my name, and it'll come up with a bajillion things to explore.
I love it. So it's Dr. Erica Steele, Steele. Go and check her out on all the social media platforms. And Dr. Steele, what can I say? Every time we get together, I have a better and better time. So I can't wait to see you in Virginia Beach. Thank you so much for all of your wisdom that you shared today with our listeners.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me.
My pleasure. And to our listeners, thank you so much for being with us on this ride today. If you like Dr. Steele's program today, make sure you like it on social media. Make sure you share it with all the other college students on social media that you know. And we hope to see you on another episode of the Fraternity Foodie Podcast. Thanks so much for listening, and we are going to see you next time.